What do you do if you're Charlie Kirk and the wealthy scion of the Swanson family food empire, this Swanson frozen dinner empire, has invited you to come do a podcast with him? This is a guy, Tucker Carlson, who has been to multiple prep schools. Like, he got kicked out of one in Switzerland, and so he ended up going to one in Newport, Rhode Island. Then he dated the dean's daughter, and that helped him get into Trinity College. And then his parents were what was it called? Something like the Silver Club, where you had, if you donated over like $5,000 to the college, which incidentally, $5,000 when Tucker Carlson went to college was probably somewhere between 30 and 50% of your tuition. So they paid almost like a tuition and a half when Tucker Carlson is there. So he's a real man of the people, as you know. And, spending his time in the salt mines of Fox News over the years, he invites Charlie Kirk onto his show. And of course, Kirk knows that Tucker now has an anti-corporate populist message. And how does Kirk get sort of finagle that when he knows like all of his backers are corporate billionaires? Well, he's got a twist.
The entire economy has become hyper-feminized. The education system has become hyper-feminized. But you think about, what are the jobs that have had the greatest emphasis of the credentialing, which basically is what college is. It's just a massive credentialing exercise. They're not the more masculine jobs that we would need, which is like industrial engineering. They're HR managers. They're norm enforcers. A young man doesn't want to go be an HR manager. They would rather go to a WNBA game than be an HR manager. The push, the thrust the last decade has been, the growth has been in what we call pink collar jobs that men would rather sit at home and kind of just be, slovenly than be caught doing, because it's just so demeaning to how we as men are wired. They're not about creation or risk taking or value proposition or boundary pushing. They're kind of about, well, here are the rules and the norms and we must enforce them. By the way, there is a rule.
They're mom jobs.
Exactly. And you know why they're mom jobs? Because these women aren't moms.
Oh, it's the women.
These women play mom.
Can you pause it? I'm sorry. So this is just an amazing thing to see here, because this is actually like how conservatives operate, right? The reason that we have more service-oriented jobs or more white-collar office jobs is in part because of the deindustrialization of our economy, and because these free trade deals shipped our manufacturing overseas to enrich corporations, which Charlie's donors were all about, which the conservative movement was all about and was instrumental in orchestrating. But instead of making a systemic critique, Charlie was on Fox News this weekend, singling out, it was Blackstone, I think, for them buying up all the housing in this country. It's never going to be, or he says BlackRock because that's a Democratic aligned firm, even though it is Blackstone and he was community noted. It's never a systemic critique. It's always the people that we have problems with. And here he is blaming women for NAFTA, basically, and for trade deals that outsourced our good jobs. And also, it's also the conservative movement that waged war on unions, which ensured that some of these jobs would be long lasting and people could have careers in these fields. It's the conservative movement, and he was blaming women.
And two more points. First of all, he says BlackRock because we know from Lauren Windsor's reporting that there has been a concerted effort by the petroleum industry to go after BlackRock and to go after Bank of America, and I'm no friends of either. But when they say BlackRock as opposed to capitalism, when they say BlackRock or Bank of America as opposed to the financialization of our economy, they are doing so because they are literally paid by the petroleum industry, by the fossil fuel industry, to go after any investments in ESG, or essentially investment portfolios that attempt to wean us off of fossil fuels. So that's why he does that. And then the other one is like, well, again, how can I obscure the fact that we have a systemic problem with capitalism? Too much ladies in the workforce. Too many ladies in the workforce.
We don't know the rules. They're wearing makeup and it's meant to arouse me.
They're just doing mom jobs. I mean, it's both like it's like
Charlie
they're
Kirk's
doing
gonna
mom
kick your
jobs,
ass, dude.
They're doing mom jobs. And the idea that like that we have become too feminized as a society is just another way of saying we should not have let women out of the kitchen. Women have one function in society, and that is to pump out babies. Period. End of story. Their participation in these in the corporate world or in just jobs in general is ruining the country, is what they're saying.
I mean,
it's not like women, like we need to create jobs for women. Let's have HR.
That's why we've had so many female presidents, is because society is so feminized.
I mean, listen, society has become, the workforce has become more feminized in the sense that women now have the opportunity to work where they didn't have that opportunity decades ago. Women actually have the ability now to have their own credit card, whereas my mother in the early 70s was not allowed to. Women now have the right to say, I don't want to be married to this guy who's abusing me anymore. In fact, my husband no longer has the right to have sex with me when I say no. This is what they're bemoaning. And the idea that this is sort of like, and somehow this is the problem. Like what Joe Rogan of the left is going to exist where if the idea is we have to basically tell women, you've got to go back to where you were in, 1950 or for that matter, 19 teens. This is all, to be clear, Charlie Kirk has Rush Limbaugh's job on radio now. Like literally, I think he does the 12 to 3 slot. This is what Rush Limbaugh built his career on in with the Clintons and Hillary Clinton saying, I'm not going to stay in the kitchen. Coming out of the Reagan era, which was a pushback to the social emancipation of the 60s and the 70s. Rush Limbaugh emerges, comes up with feminazis. And now you don't even need to say feminazis. Now you just say women. Feminists. You just say feminists. You just say like, somebody's wearing a pink tie. I got calls because Rush Limbaugh was mocking Dick Durbin on the Senate floor back in 2005 for wearing a pink tie. I remember getting a phone call from a conservative who's like, our enemies are laughing at us. Now, they had to jettison the whole pink tie thing because Donald Trump wears pink ties. But
also
the
wears
rest
makeup
remains.
And tans and lots of gender affirming care for him.
I get a lot of hair
and
work,
you just see how inherent in the argument is that like it's why there's this focus, an obsession with trans women as well, which is that this idea that maleness is supreme and dominant and desirable, and femininity is embarrassing, weak, and maybe a threat to our national security. And that is just misogyny. And it just is, we're at a point right now where it's like very open and expressed without much trepidation, even though I know this has been as old as Rush Limbaugh, but like this manosphere space on the internet, it's added younger people into a very reactionary anti-feminist moment.
And it's not a coincidence that you're looking at two basically fundamentalist religious guys having this conversation. They will whitewash it. They will launder it and make it about corporate. But at the end of the day, what this is genders are not social constructs in their mind, that there is something endemic that is anti-men or anti-male to work in human resources or the service industry in some fashion. Men were meant to go out on the be pioneers and to
go to the quad and debate college kids.
Exactly.
Right.
But if they concede that gender is a social construct as opposed to being bestowed upon God, and all of these things like male dominance must exist because otherwise you can't have God dominance. There's a hierarchy, and if you break any part of that hierarchy, God, man, well, it's really God, King, Donald Trump, a man, a woman
who came from the rib of man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you mess with any part of that hierarchy, you are messing with the entire hierarchy. So you can't just say like, well, down here, well, what about if men and women are equal? No, then, we don't have God and rich people ahead of us on the hierarchy. We don't have the oligarch, which is the king, ahead of us. You cannot mess with any part of the hierarchy or it all falls apart. And that's why they have problems with trans people. That's why it's quite obvious if you're a guy and you buy into this patriarchy, well, of course, it's a problem if there's women. And there's also a racial aspect. Well, women and trans women are problematic. Yeah. And there's a racial aspect to it as well. We saw that in the context of like, how do we justify slavery? Well, I mean, God, has chosen us. We are the word of God, and we know that we are the higher being. Well, how do we justify taking indigenous people's land? An edict from the Pope that still remains and has been laundered into our federal law via the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg mentioned it in 2005. I mean, all of these fundamentalist Christian, and in many cases, fundamentalist religious, broadly speaking, principles get laundered into our society. And that's what Charlie Kirk's doing there.
The conspiracy theories about Michelle Obama are another way, I think, instructive way to look at how race and gender intersect in that way, because conservative men wanted to gatekeep femininity because how do you control femininity? It is in relation to what a man deems desirable, and given like how open the society is at a given time, that can contract or can expand. And it's racialized in the sense that it's also when black women are deemed like not feminine enough or too masculine, it also justifies further dehumanizing them in the same way that they do it with trans people.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.